on the topic of marketing and all of that stuff, I really want to actually pick your brain a little bit on what you think makes a fantastic marketer in 2024. Now, I know obviously marketers have like this perfect balance of being creative and technologically adept and customer centric, some of the things that we kind of just discussed as well. Um, but I wonder, Stephanie, beyond these common traits, even like emotional intelligence and stuff like that, beyond these things that are quite obvious to know that a great marketer should have, what do you think really sets a good marketer apart from a really great marketer these days?
I would give you my guess in terms of what it could be, because, yeah, to your exact point, there's this big element of how creative can you be as a marketer, and you have so many different platforms and media channels to do that these days. And then you have the other end of the spectrum, which is how analytical can you be as a marketer, and there's so much data and being able to convert all of that into figures that the finance team can understand so that your budget's protected. Like, there's so much that's going on today. I did do a doctorate in business with a focus on marketing. And when I talk about my findings with the industry or anybody who wants to listen, um, I really just take it back to like comms 101,
Mhm.
and just to remind marketers that it's about the consumer. It's all about how media and advertising makes people feel. And so if we just remember, there's a process when people are exposed to messaging. It's encoding when you're exposed, and decoding, which is how it makes you feel. And does it tap into previous experiences that you've had as a person or with the brand that's being advertised? There's such a complex process into how people will respond to an ad. And I think that's what a great marketer is going to be keeping top of mind in everything that they do. Because how people feel about the medium that is being used to convey the message they're exposed to, that has an effect on the actual ad itself and how people feel about the ad. So if people are less trusting of a channel, that's going to be reflected by the brand, right? We talk about brand
Yeah.
safety. There's an element of that there. Traditional media, and I've got to give a little flex to out of home media. It's in the real world, right? So people tend to trust it more. And that can be reflected then on how they feel about the brand. So there's so much going on there. And yeah, going back to psychology a little bit, the art of communications. That's I don't think we talk about that enough in the
No.
space.
No, exactly. No, I have to agree with you. I don't think we do talk about that enough. I mean, it's when you look at some people that really are, say, for instance, like influencers in marketing, right? They kind of jot off these like typical things of like, yes, okay, you have to be customer centric. You have to, be able to relate to people and all of that. But I don't feel like we're really going deep enough, to be honest with you, because yes, it's one thing to say you have to be relatable and know how to relate to people and play with their emotion, or not play with their emotions, but actually, I just had a guest, Luke Matthews, where he said that great marketers are all master manipulators, which was quite a controversial thing to say. But I think maybe at its core, it is kind of like that. Maybe he's like one of the only ones that actually is saying that out loud. But yes, I think that if you take away how ugly that sounds, um, at its core, that is what it is, right? We're trying to influence people to think or feel a certain way about our product or service. And so my point
Definitely.
is,
Yeah.
yeah. And my point is, I don't feel like we're talking deep enough about how to actually achieve that. Like if you're, say, for instance, I was a beginner marketer and I'm asking you, Stephanie, how do I actually tap into my audience? Like, how do I know what they want? How can I relate to them and give them what they want, but also still sell them what I'm trying to sell them?
Yeah, it's a very complex web to navigate, and some of it goes back to the art of the sell and being a good salesperson. It's understanding people, so the same thing applies to marketing.
Hmm.
And I empathize with, say, if you're a media buyer, right? you only have so much time in a day to figure out all the different types of media. And again, you're bringing the stats and the analyses together, and then you're also adding the creative and all the negotiations. And like that is a heck of a lot.
Yeah.
So to then add that additional layer and really get into the psychology, it's a big task. And certainly when people have only a limited amount of time to do their jobs and they want to do a good job, I always refer to that idea of, nobody got fired for buying TV. And then
Yeah.
I question that. I'm like, in these days, maybe you should be if you're buying linear television. I don't know. Sometimes it's great, but we can't stick to the status quo because it's safe in today's environment. So finding, whether you're on the brand side or you're on an agency side, wherever you are situated as a marketer, finding a space where you are encouraged to take some of those risks and call out a challenge quo that you think should be changed. I think that's something that executives should be paying attention to in terms of how to foster that, because sometimes a good bet on something is just not going to work out, but it's
Mm,
valuable because you have learned. And sometimes a good bet that there's nothing in the data indicating potentially that it could be good, you just strike gold. So navigating that too is decisions can't just be driven by data and insights in the marketing landscape, nor can they just be driven by, if you're a creative and you just want to do, like, you still have to listen a little bit sometimes to
100.
what you're being told. So it's an art.
Do you think that it's like a God-given talent, or do you think that people can actually learn how to, how can I put this? Um, like connect their left and their right brain, because that's what it sounds like to me. Like you really need to be active on both your left and right brain sensors to be able to be a really good marketer, because on one side you have this analytical way of thinking and the other side is like this truly creative way of thinking. So that, yeah, my question again, do you think that this is like a God-given talent, or can people learn this, and if so, how can they work on both of those things simultaneously?
I think people can learn just about anything if they want to, right? So that shouldn't deter anyone. But when it comes to having those natural talents, what some people just are inherently creative, and some people just are inherently they feel they thrive in numbers, for example. That's why it's nice to have a team. And
Yeah.
I always tell, in a group setting, it's we all rely on each other to bring something to the table. And it goes back to communicating. So if you have a bunch of people in a group that each have a talent that you need, the only thing stopping that from being an amazing success is the ability to communicate.